Okay, in this tutorial we're going to be looking at how to create good diffuse maps and good normal maps from photo reference. So the first thing you need to do is open this file here. You can download this from Moodle. This is taken from the website www.mayang.com/textures, which is a great kind of texture resource site. Okay, so we're going to be making a tiling texture from this. It's just going to involve this kind of floor area here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is to sort out the kind of perspective that the photo was taken in. As you can see, if we draw a straight line down here, you can see these lines don't match, and that's going to obviously throw up some errors in our tiling. So the first thing I would like to do is turn on my rulers, which is just here, or Control R on the keyboard. Then make sure I've got Show Guides on. Now, there won't be that option currently isn't available because I haven't got any guides in. So let's just drop some guides into the scene. So from your ruler tab here, just left click, hold and drag, and you can see you can actually drag down and you'll create a blue ruler line here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make straight guidelines along each kind of main horizontal and vertical line of our texture, and then we can use these as guides to distort our image. Just to show you, if you want to turn those on or off, if you hold Control and press H, that will hide and unhide them. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is use the Edit Transform tools here. So the first one we're going to use is Perspective. So you can see now I've got this transform gizmo around my texture. Now I can actually use that. You see the way that works? That actually adds perspective to the image. So if you control one handle, it will control the other one. So I'm not actually going to do very much with that. We'll go Edit, Transform, and then have a look at the Warp tool. You can see now we've got a grid of points, and now you can actually use these points to give you far more control over the distortion of your image. This is probably the one I most commonly use, just because it gives you a lot more control. So now spend some time actually getting this texture to line up with the guides that you have created. So it's worth spending a lot of time getting this just right. If you're finding your points are snapping, by the way, if you go to View and turn off Snap here, then that will stop that from happening. Okay, so I don't think that's too bad, so I'm just going to select my Move tool and then hit Apply. So now I've got this kind of roughly lined up. So the next thing we're going to do is actually crop the image to just the section we want. Now what I'm going to do is actually select a little bit outside of the texture space that I want, then go to Image, Crop. There is actually the crop tool here as well, so I might as well just quickly show you how that works. So Control Alt Z to undo. Now with the crop tool you can actually just make a selection on your image, and it will darken out the areas that you're cropping out, and then you can use the handles to actually pull them in. That'll do for now. So again, go to the Move tool, hit crop. Okay, so now I've got things straightened out, I'm going to use Control and H on the keyboard to hide the guides. So the next thing we're going to want to do is even up this texture as much as possible. And what I mean by that is making sure that the light value on each section is even. So you can see here, this bit here is a bit brighter than this bit down here. This tile here is brighter than this one. Now the reason we want to make sure that the values are all even is because the lighting is going to be done in the games engine or in 3ds Max. So there's no point us having light in our texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this tile here, because when I look at the 4 tiles, this one's probably the one with the most even lighting and the most kind of even shape. So I'm going to press Control C on that and then Control V to paste it. And then I'm going to press Control V again to paste it again, and drag that up to this tile here. I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard to line this up. So we can see at the moment that this one is a bit bigger. So what we might actually do is delete this layer, so just drag it into the bin, and this one here. And what we're going to do is actually select this whole bottom row. Control C, Control V to paste. We'll drag that up. Line that up here. I'm going to turn down my opacity so I can better line this up. And again, use the arrow keys on your keyboard to do a more precise move. Now we can see at the moment we're slightly cropping off the top here. So let's expand our canvas by going to Image, Canvas Size. Selecting this tab here, and in pixels we're going to increase the height to 1917, so I'm actually going to match the height of the width. I've selected the wrong option there, so I might as well just select the whole texture and the other layer and just drag it down. Okay, you can see that one thing we actually need to do is actually flip this, which I forgot to do. So I'm just going to select that layer and go to Transform, Flip, Vertical. And then you should find that better is actually better lined up. So I'm just going to also drag in another guide. I already had one there, and make sure that it's lined up horizontally as well. So Control H is to hide the guides. So now we know these 4 panels are okay. But if we look at the yellow panels, we'll see there's lighting here, there's a lot more light on this area than this area. So the best thing to do is actually pick one of the yellow panels that you think is the most even. I'm going to select this one here. Copy that, Control C, and then paste that. I'll drag that over to this side and use Transform, Flip Horizontal to actually move that across. So I know that these 2 panels are the same anyway. So one little thing let's do actually, let's now make a new layer here. We've got all these panels right except for the centre one, but we know that there's some repetition on these panels with these little kind of black dots here, so I'm going to use my clone stamp. I'm going to make my brush a bit bigger. I'm just going to make sure I'm on full opacity, and then if you hold Alt and click where you want to copy, so I'm going to copy that bit there, let's say, and I'm going to paste it there. I'm going to hold Alt, click on the bit I want to copy, then paste it there. So you see I'm just adding in a couple of these extra kind of bumps, because I know that they're going to improve the kind of look of the normal map, because these bits will actually be kind of bumped in. And it also avoids any kind of repetition. Now the last bit we need to tweak then, now we've done that, is the middle tile. So go to your rectangular marquee tool and just select the middle tile. Now select the layer with the middle tile on, and then if you click the adjustment layer tab, I want you to select, we'll use levels for this. And what we're going to do is just darken it a bit, so we're not actually doing the main kind of change yet, we're just going to darken it here. Now you see that because we had that selection, it's actually made a mask around the levels. So with black selected as my colour, I'm going to go to the paintbrush tool, make myself a nice big brush with low hardness so it's nice and soft. I'm going to click on the mask itself, and if I paint black here, you see the way it's actually painting black onto the mask and therefore taking parts, therefore taking that out from being applied to the level. So I'm probably going to do that, and I'm going to use my levels tab here to even it up. So maybe something like that is a lot more, is now a lot more even. Now obviously another thing we look at here, the centre tile is actually a lot more, has a lot less contrast in it than these other tiles. So let's again select that centre tile, use the marquee tool again, rectangular marquee tool, and then we'll click on layer 0 here. And one thing I'm going to do is press Ctrl C and then press Ctrl V, and that will just paste what I had copied there. So now I've got that centre tile as its own layer. Now I'm going to apply a brightness contrast node into the scene. Then if you hold Alt and left click between the layers, you see that little icon is appearing. So I'm going to click there. Now I get this little arrow, and that means that this layer is only going to affect this tile. So now I can increase the brightness a little bit and increase the contrast to get that more kind of evened up. Now you see I've still got a little bit of lighting problem here, so that's actually fixable again using this. So select this layer again, apply another levels into the scene, and this time go to your paintbrush tool with black and just paint the whole thing in black. You can actually use Alt and backspace to fill that layer in black. So that means currently that levels isn't going to be doing anything to any, but if we now select white as our colour, I'm just going to paint in this corner here. So now I can tweak my levels to even that up. Okay, so now we've got a nice kind of even texture in terms of colours and value. I'm actually just going to tweak this a little bit further, maybe bring that down to about there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is actually make this fit into one texture space. So I'm going to go to Image, Image Size. We're going to set our width and our height to 1024. If you're finding that it's changing the height, if you change the width, if you just turn off Constrain Proportions, and then you can change them independently. So I'm going to hit OK. Now we've reduced that down. Now obviously at the moment we've got this bar at the top up here, so we're going to need to fix that. So what we're going to do is select all of our layers by selecting the bottom layer, browsing to the top, holding Shift and clicking on the top layer. Now if I use Control T, I can actually transform this, pull this up to match up to there, and hit Apply on the transform. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. So let's try bringing this into 3ds Max to see how this looks. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call this TA floor tiles _ diff, and make sure you save as a PSD. Now the reason you save as a PSD is because we can use that as a texture, and then every time we edit something we can just save it in Photoshop and we can see the results in 3ds Max. So we're going to make a plane to assign this to, and in our material slots we're going to drop that texture into the diffuse. Okay, so at the moment we can't tell if this is tiling, but we can soon sort that out if we just, well, first of all I'm going to make this a nice evenly sized plane, and then we're going to apply a UVW map modifier, which just gives us kind of basic mapping. So we've got planar, cylindrical and box, that kind of thing. And down here I'm going to set the tiling to maybe 4. Now we can have a look at how our texture is tiling. So one thing we can see here actually is this big break here on the all around the edge of the texture. It's definitely too fat, so we're going to have to tweak that. So in Photoshop, we're going to select all of our layers again, press Control T, and well, actually first of all I'm going to zoom right into here to this edge, then press Control T and drag this up a few pixels. Remember, if it's snapping, go to View and turn off the snap. Probably try about there. Apply the transformation and zoom down to the bottom. Again, Control T, pull this right down, and we'll do the same on each side. Obviously when you're doing this you'll want to make sure that you don't lose any of the detail in the tile. You see I'm pretty close here actually to losing a bit of that. It's probably just about okay, but still I'm going to undo that, Control T again, and when I bring it in I'm going to stop before we lose any of the detail in that tile. And last but not least, this side. Again, pull that to about there. Okay, so it's not looking too bad, so we'll save that. Come back into 3ds Max, and that should auto update. And it's looking a lot better. So you notice here we're still getting quite a thick line, and here as well. That's probably this top line up here. So Control T again, and to pull that up a bit further. File, save. That's starting to look a bit better. Still not happy with this bit here though. So we'll come back in and figure out where that. So we can see it's probably down here. So this time I'm going to use transform I'd say it's definitely this bit down here. So we'll probably go back to our original layer here, go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and try just pulling this handle out a bit. Let's just see what's done. It's definitely looking a bit better. Just to show you real quick actually, if you make a selection, so if I say select this area here, then I can go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and actually just tweak the selection that I have there. So you can actually just select a small amount of your image and warp that. Yeah, it's definitely looking a lot better now. Still not quite happy with it though, so we'll go back in and tweak that. Now bear in mind that warp can't be applied to multiple layers. So what I'm going to do real quick is actually select this layer up here and just drag it down to here, and then use Control E, and that will merge that with that. So now when I do Edit, Transform, Warp, I can tweak that other problem area like so. And now I could also use, just select that bit there and do Edit, Transform, Warp. I can fix that bit if need be. So we'll jump back into Max. Should see that's now looking a lot better. Now one other little thing is some of our mortar lines don't quite line up. So it's worth kind of fixing those. So to fix those, what we're going to do is actually go in and select them. So if you use Tab on your keyboard, by the way, that will turn off your UI. And then you can just go around, hold Shift to add a selection. And we're going to select this mortar around here. Like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop in another layer at the top, and using Alt and Delete, we're just going to fill in that border with this dark grey. Let's make it a bit dark actually. So Alt and Delete, and that will fill that in. Then I'm going to go to my, well actually just leave that as it is for now. We'll reduce the opacity a bit, so down to about 50%. We'll try saving that out. We'll have a look at that now. So I still think we've got quite a thick line on this edge here. So one last change will be again to select all of our layers, actually except for the top mortar, so just use Control to deselect that layer, and then we will zoom in again, use Control T to just ramp that up again. Okay, so there's our completed texture for our floor tiles. So the next thing we're going to do then is create the normal map from this. So I'm going to make a new folder, a new group. I'm going to call this normals, and in there I'm going to add a new layer. Now what we want to do is use our magic wand tool and make sure this is set to sample all layers. I'm going to notice how with the tolerance, if I have the say tolerance set to 5, notice how it will select less. If I have it say set to 20, I'll select more. Try 30, that'll select even more. So what I want to make sure it does is select all the kind of yellow areas, but leave off the little black dents that are in this. So once we've done that, we'll go to our brush tool, we'll set this to white, and well actually we'll set this to very slightly off white, and the reason we do that is so that we can darken it down if we need to. If it's white then we can't tweak that at all, but if it's slightly off, if it has some value in it, then we'll be able to reduce or increase it. Then use Alt and Delete to fill that in. And then I'm going to scroll down, and on my centre square I'm going to use Alt and left click, sorry, Control and left click, and that will select the centre square. But actually that's just a square selection, so we're going to use, instead of using that, we'll make another new layer and again use the magic wand tool. So again, if it's too high, try setting it down, because we only want that centre square information. Now again, we're actually only trying to select the outer edge here. This inner bit here, yes, I'm not selecting that, but if I use the rectangular marquee tool now, hold shift and just select that inside, I'll actually select that. And I'm going to use my brush tool again and fill that in with white. Then make another new layer, and now all we need to do is get these top tiles here. So same technique again, the magic wand. Maybe I'll increase the tolerance a bit for this one. And I'll just select that whole square and go around and do each of them. Again, you could do the same technique I did before, which is just select the outer kind of white and then do a rectangular marquee to select inside. Then use Alt Delete to fill that in with white. Okay, so we're getting there, but now all we need to do is fill in that mortar. So we add another new layer and put this below all the white layers. Select kind of dark grey here. And then use Alt Delete to fill that in. You can see actually I've got a bit of area where this hasn't been selected, so I'm actually just going to paint this in with white, so I don't want any of that detail to remain on our normal map. So I probably could have just select this rather than do it like this, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. The last thing you might want to do is actually go in and just fix any of these little bits here where the mortar has been selected. A couple of ways to do that: either just select it and fill it in with black, or actually come in here and paint this. I'm actually going to have to put a layer on the top here because that white is actually painted into that other map. Okay, so that's our normal set now, so let's turn that off and on. So now I can save this. I'm going to save this as normal map. Bake. Now the reason we're painting it black and white is because anything that's black is going to be indented and anything that's white is going to stick out. So obviously we want the mortar to be indented and the tiles to actually stick out. So that's why I painted it black and white like this. So I'm going to do this in XNormal. So we'll do XNormal here and come down to Tools. You can do this in Crazy Bump as well, it's the same principle. And I'm going to select Height Map to Normal Map. Now in Height Map here, I'm going to do Browse for Height Map, so right click, do Browse for Height Map, and I'm going to select my Normal Map Bake here. I'm then going to right click in my Normal Map tab and do Generate. We'll see that's now generated a normal map based on what we have painted. Now there's a couple of different variables you can test. You've got smooth as well, so mess around with this until you are happy with what it displays. And then if you do right click, save normal map, and I'm going to save this as TA floor tiles underscore NRM. Okay, so to preview your material properly in Maya, if we just create a plane in the viewport, and then scale this up, we'll turn off the grid and we'll just lower our subdivisions on this surface. Now what you want to do next is, in order to preview normal maps and in-game materials, you need to turn on the actual plugin that lets you do that. Now you only need to do this once, but you shouldn't need to do it in uni, but you'll probably need to do it at home. So if you go to Setting, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and just make sure DirectX 11 shader is ticked on. Then what you want to do is go to Renderer and set it to Viewport 2.0. And now if you right click on your model, go to Assign New Material and pick DirectX 11 shader from the list. If you haven't activated that plugin in Windows plugins, then that will not appear. Okay, so this is a great material for previewing kind of in-game meshes within. You can see it will let you have ambient, occlusion, diffuse, opacity, specular, normal, and even reflection and tessellation. And we only need diffuse and normal. So we'll come over to the diffuse map, select diffuse, and pick our diffuse map. Now it won't appear at first, and that's because you have to tick on the diffuse map tab here. Then we'll want to come down to normal map, tick that on, and then browse and select our normal map. There you go, you can see we're already getting that nice normal display in the viewport. Obviously this is only one tile, so what you want to do is load up your Nightshade UV editor, or just a normal UV editor, and right click, go to UV mode, And we'll select the UVs on the side, and if you just use this button we can push this along, say 5 times, and then push these up 5 times as well. So we can see it's tiling okay, and we're getting our normal map preview. Now one other thing, the lighting is very flat by default in the viewport, so if you come over to the rendering tab, select spotlight, and just scale up the size of the icon. Then rotate this round. And if you go to lighting, use all lights, then you can actually use this spotlight to preview the material. Let's increase the cone angle and the penumbra. There you go, you can really see what's going on there. So obviously this shade is great for previewing anything like this.